Let's stand. Let's stand. Church hymnal is 256. Okay, let's move to 285. Sorry, let's move to 285. 285, church hymnal there is 681. Ikhona indawo yophumlo. 2. Ikhona indawo yophumlo kuye uNkulunkulu lapho isono singehluphe kuye uNkulunkulu sonke o Jesu mhle ngiyophe ovela ku Baba sephase silindile kuye uNkulunkulu ikhona indawo emnandi kuye uNkulunkulu lakho khona sindisi kuye uNkulunkulu oh Jesu mhle ngiyomhle ovela ku Baba sepha sesilindile kuye uNkulunkulu. There is a place of full in the heart of God, a place where all is joy and peace, near to the heart of God. O Jesu mhle ngiyomhle ovela ku Baba sipha sesilindile kuye uNkulunkulu.
The church may be seated. In this morning, I'm motivated to talk about the word giving because giving somehow to me has such a profound and deep meaning, but then I always fail to be able to explain that profound and deep feeling of giving. The principle behind giving, what I heard from one speaker from this church, was saying that one has to give out of the outflow. And then the receiver who receives the outflow, then that means the receiver becomes the inflow. So you can't give what you don't have. Now, putting that into context, as we're celebrating the AMO Day, as men and as males in this earth and in this world, we need to come to terms with what is it, what contribution is there that we can give as men of today? What is it that we would be remembered for as men of today? So I want to read 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 6, which says, "But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which sows bountifully shall reap as bountifully, also bountifully." So the little that you give to the world is proportional to the outcomes that you see from it. So, as we reflect today, as we reflect on this day, we come to terms of where we are today and clarify the role and the vision that we have for the life that we're living today. Let's bow our head and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we give thanks that you have been with us through the whole week. We give thanks that through all the complications of life, through all the hardships of life, that we find ourselves here today. In a special way, O Lord, we pray for men to be true examples of you as the Father, to reflect your character in this earth, and to carry the principles that you would love to impart onto your children. As we will be giving, dear Lord, speak to our hearts, speak to our minds, that in little you reap little, but in many you reap much. I make this prayer to Christ, my Lord. Amen.
To number 25. Oh, to Jesus I surrender all. To him I freely give. I will never love and trust him in his presence daily live. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all to Jesus I surrender, humbly at his feet I bow. Worldly pleasures all forsaken take. May Jesus take me now. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender to Jesus I surrender. Make me Savior, wholly thine. Let me feel the Holy Spirit truly know that thou art mine. I surrender. Oh, to thee, my blessed Savior, I surrender all. All to Jesus I surrender now. I feel the sacred flame. Oh, the joy of full salvation, glory, glory to his name. I surrender all. I surrender all. All to thee, my blessed Savior, I surrender.
I greet the saints in the powerful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. I greet the saints in the powerful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. I'm given a very challenging task this morning. This is a time for prayer. And standing here, I'm also one of the people that need the prayer, but I'm tasked to offer the prayer. It is very, very challenging to be given a task of something that you need. Especially when we have seen, especially recently, how some of our church members and friends have gone through, going through challenges. We had a series of people, well, a series of prayers that were offered in the church for people that were sick in this church. And we praise God that indeed He touched and healed some. But unfortunately, one of them could not make it. And in that context, it's when the prayer is very much important. I'm going to read some few verses here. In fact, I'm going to read a prayer. And we'll have time to pray according to how the prayer that Jesus offered. He offered at a time when he was also going to go through a very difficult time of the task that he was given to come on earth. And this is the prayer that he offered it was an intercessory prayer, because he knew that when he leaves, that his disciples are going to go through the challenges of this earth. And he knew that in his absence, they might go through some times when they might doubt that he's still with them because they don't see him anymore. And he left a few key principles of what does it mean, or that prayer, what was the intention of that prayer that Jesus Christ offered. We'll read John 17. John 17 from verse 9. John 17, verse 9. It reads as follows. I pray for them. I do not pray for the world, but for those whom you have given. But these are in the world. And I come to you, Holy Father, keep through your name those whom you have given me, that they may be as one as we are. While I was with them in the world, I kept them in your name. Those whom you gave me, I have kept, and none of them is lost except the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled. But now I come to you, and these things I speak in the world, that they may have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they are not of the world, just as I'm not of the world. I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but you should keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I'm not of the world. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. As you have sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. And for their sake, I sanctify myself, that they also be sanctified by the truth. We'll end them. Few things from this prayer that Christ did before he went through the crucifixion is that he wanted that his disciples be one. Because he knew that human beings were created not to be solos. God demonstrated in his Godhead that he's a God of relationships. He's a God that socializes with people, that mingle with people. And he prayed for that specific purpose, that we should not forget that we need each other. And we need to pray for one another. We need to give each other strength. Because he knew that we are going to go through challenges that will make us feel that we don't need other people. There are a lot of people currently that don't want to have relationship because they were hurt before. And the Satan comes with those things in order to create in you that you don't need the next person, that you are complete. There are some people that are scared to be amongst the family or amongst a group of people, because of the experience that they've gone through. Some have lost their dear people in their lives to a point to say, you know what, the hurt that I've went through to lose this person, I don't want to love another person that much because I'm going to go through the same hurt. Now, that develops in you self-sufficient, that you don't need anyone around you. Christ prayed that we should resemble him because he's one with the Father. And Christ says, if you are one with one another, it will show that you are indeed my disciples. So today we are reminding each other that we should always remember that God wants us to be united. God wants us because we know that there are certain weaknesses that another person can help you to be strong on. You are not all powerful. We are dependent on each other. We need to support and pray for one another. And he prayed that we should not be taken out of this world. We should not be taken to a special place. We should go through the challenges of this world. Because the world hated Christ. So if you are one with Christ, you should not expect the world to be happy with you. We should not be disheartened when the world deals harshly with you. It dealt harshly with Christ himself. So today we are encouraged or reminded that we should show in how we relate to each other that we are indeed his disciples. I hope today someone will listen to God speaking to you right now. That we should remove doubts in our heads of God being with us, of what God is expecting of us. That we should remember that we serve a God that wants us to live in peace. That he wants people to live in harmony. That you want people to live in support of each other. We should not be seen to be supporting each other when one is going through some challenges. We should be seen to be supporting each other in all things. So I hope that as I'm going to render a prayer at this moment, that you meditate on these words and be strengthened to look at the world differently, to look at the world the way Christ expected you to look at it. Let us kneel as we pray. Our Father in heaven, we come before you this morning, not because we are worthy, but because of the love that you have for us. We come to you this morning during the holy hours that you blessed, that you live in these hours. We come to you because we believe that you are indeed with us at this present moment. Help us, Lord, to have that faith and trust that when you said, I will be with you until the end, that indeed you are with us until the end. Even when the things around us don't show that you are indeed with us. Help us not to forget those words. Help us not to doubt those words. Help us that those words strengthen us. I pray, Lord, in a very special way, Lord, that your children this morning, some of them having heavy hearts, they are living a life that is doubtful. They're living a life that is purposeless because of the things that are happening around them. They've lost hope of seeing you coming. They've lost hope that you do still have disciples on this earth. I pray, Lord, that you touch them this morning. I pray, Lord, that you heal them through the pain and suffering that have made them to think and believe in that way. I pray for them, Lord, that they renew their relationship with you, that they trust you differently this morning. I present to you, Lord, your children that really trust in you, that really believe that you are with them. But the trials of this world are heavy. The trials of this world are busy pulling them down, Lord. I pray, Lord, in a special way, that you relieve them from those burdens of this earth, that you relieve them from the tiredness of carrying the burdens of this earth. I pray, Lord, that you renew their minds, that the pains and the burdens that they have been carrying not damage their minds and their hearts. I pray, Lord, that you heal them completely, because carrying a burden never leave you the same way. There are scars that will remain even when the burdens have been lifted. But I pray, Lord, for complete healing. I pray, Lord, for complete trust that you are the one that have lifted the burdens, that you are the one that have come through. I pray, Lord, for your children this morning, those that are doubtful about your disciples being one, those that are skeptical about their brethren, those that doubts and think, having evil surmising about other brothers, even when things look honest, but their hearts and their minds still do not trust. They still create evil thoughts in their minds about other brothers and sisters. I pray, Lord, in a very special way, that you heal them. You touch them, Lord. Renew their minds and renew their hearts. I pray, Lord, in a very special way, that you help them believe again, that when you pray, that we must be one. When you prayed for us, you even pray for those that believed through your disciples, that they also be one. Help them, Lord, to trust that it is possible, indeed, even on this earth, to be one. It is possible. It is possible. It is possible for us to reflect your character. It is possible to trust in you. I pray for healing for different families, Lord. I pray for unity for different families that are represented this morning. I pray, Lord, that as we leave this place, we leave different people. As we leave this house of worship, show indeed that we heard you speaking to us. I pray this and believing that in the name that is above all other name, the name that is more powerful than any other name, the name that set men free, that indeed this morning we are free. We pray this and believing that you shall keep us under your wing, Lord, until you return. In Jesus' name, amen.
The words of the song number 280 say, "He loved the children while he was with us on earth. Even though he is in heaven now, he still loves us." It's time for our children's story with Palisa.
I greet you all in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. Before I say the story, please pray for us.
Let's close our eyes and pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, please be with us, guide us, keep us safe. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
The theme of our story is God hears and answers our prayers. Children, please listen very carefully. I will ask 3 questions after this story. I will first read Daniel 6, verse 16. So at last the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to him, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." There once was a young man called Daniel, who faithfully prayed to God morning, noon, and night. Daniel found favor in the eyes of Darius, who was ruler over the kingdom of Babylon. Because of Daniel's great ability, the king made plans to put him in charge of the entire empire. The other high officials that the king appointed were jealous of Daniel and began to try to find fault with the way that he was handling the government affairs. Unfortunately, they could never find any fault with Daniel because he was faithful, responsible, and trustworthy in performing his duties. Finally, they decided that their only chance of accusing Daniel of any wrongdoing was because of his faith in God. The other officials went to the king and said, "Long live King Darius. We all agree that you should make a new law that the next 30 days any person who prays to anyone except you will be thrown into the den of lions." So Darius did as they asked. He wrote the law and signed it. The other officials knew that Daniel faithfully prayed to God. Daniel heard about the new law, but he continued to pray 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to God. The jealous officials went to Daniel's house and they found him praying and asking for God's help. They immediately went to the king and reminded him of the law he had signed. The king was very sad because he was very fond of Daniel. He tried to find a way to spare Daniel, but the law could not be changed. So the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. As the king put Daniel in the den, he said to him, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." Then a stone was brought and placed over the entrance to the lion's den. It was very dark in the lion's den. Daniel knelt and began to pray for God to protect him. The next morning, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out, "Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve so faithfully, able to rescue you from the lions?" Daniel answered, "My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths so that they could not hurt me." The king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be arrested from the den, be released from the den. There was no scratch on him because he had trusted in his God to protect him. Then King Darius sent this message to the people of every race and nation and language throughout the world. "I decree that everyone throughout my kingdom should tremble with fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he will endure forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his rule will never end. He rescues and saves his people. He performs miraculous signs and wonders in the heavens and the earth and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. Now I'm going to ask 3 questions. Who was thrown into the den of lions?
Daniel.
That is correct. Daniel was thrown into the den of lions. How many times did Daniel pray?
3 times a day.
That is correct. Daniel prayed 3 times a day. We should also pray more than 3 times a day because we can pray anytime, anywhere, and any place. Question 3. What do we learn from the story of Daniel?
That we should always pray. That we should trust in God.
That is correct.
That we must believe in Him.
That is true and correct. We should always believe in God so He can protect us too. I will pray for us today. Can we close our eyes before I pray? Heavenly Father, we may not face the same kind of lions in our life that Daniel did, but we do face many problems which we need your help in overcoming. Help us to be faithful in prayer and in obeying what you have commanded us to do. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Oh, yes, to tell us more. Now, it is the tradition of this church that we introduce those who are serving us today. This is done for the sake of visitors. The one who gave us the pastoral prayer is our brother, Siabong Ntombela. What does the church say? The one who gave us the offertory reading and prayer is our brother, Connors Francis. What does the church say? Amen. I am your brother, Ian Ngulube. Amen. Now, if Jesus was still walking with us physically, he would have been the one who is standing up to share the word of God. However, he's not with us physically. And his finger has chosen our brother, Derek Viriri, who is going to speak in the place of God this morning. What does the church say? Amen. And so, now that he speaks in the place of God, I'm not only speaking to him alone, but to everyone who speaks during this hour. It is God. It is the place of God. And therefore, the place of God will never be used to preach, to settle political scores. Amen? Amen? It is the voice of God that is supposed to sound. For our second song, we are going to arise and make use of 133.
Okay, let's all rise to number 133. Ovuma ngihambe nkositho, ovuma ngihambe nkose, njengo Eno wayehamba, ngithathe ngesandla sakho, ukhulume mnandi nami, noma ngingaboni indlela, kodwa ngizohamba nawe. Anginakho ukuhamba uthumizulu nesiphetho, uhlupho luyangithiya, ezithazi yangilinga, kuzo lezi zinhlupheko, Nkosi vuma hambe nawe. Nxa uthathi sandla sami, ngizohamba ngokwethaba, ngesibindi endleleni, ngizothwala isiphambano, ngize ngibona masango, Nkosi mahambe nawe.
I stand to greet the Church of God in Christ's wonderful name. Amen. After such an introduction, I don't know if I should change the sermon or just stick to what was prepared. But I'm quite confident that whatever it is that was prepared will fit in line with what Brother Ngulube was saying. We want to thank the leadership for an opportunity to speak and address the church. The trust is the honor and the privilege and the burden is not an easy one, as Brother Ndombele already mentioned. Especially as mentioned as well, that it is one where one must speak in the place of God, and no one can match the place of God. No one. And no matter how good and righteous and close you can be to his image, no one. In fact, like we were hearing from the children's sermon, even Daniel's enemies, let alone his friends, his enemies could not find anything wrong with him. They could not find any fault with him. But yet even he believed he could not speak in the place of God. In fact, in chapter 9, we hear him saying, "We have sinned, O Lord, forgive us." So yeah, it is not an easy task. It is AMO Day that we have heard, and I want to thank the leader in his absence that he has given us this privilege and this opportunity to share as well. This morning, I intend to share on something that came to me as two texts had come. The first one was coming across as a cliche. It came across as a cliche. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 16. I think the verse is 13 there, where it says, in King James it says, quit yourselves like men. And to me, it struck a chord because that was a line in our school song in high school. Quit yourselves like men. In other versions, it says, be brave like a man. In other versions, it doesn't even include the men. Yeah, it just says, be brave and courageous. But we ended up here. Our text of consideration this morning will be Psalm chapter 68. Psalm chapter 68, we'll look at two verses. That's where our point of departure will be. We'll cover and touch on some other scriptures, but this is the dwelling point. Psalm chapter 68, verse 5 and verse 6. As I was going through the preparations, I saw one commentator saying this was one of Christ's favorite psalms. Psalm chapter 68 and 72 were one of his closest psalms, and often he would sing them. And I think Brother Ngulube was hoping that we would understand that as we would sing hymn number 280, that even when he was on earth, he loved children. So Psalm chapter 68, verse 5 and verse 6. When we find it, we can say amen. I'll ask Brother Ntombela to read it for us. Oh, do you mind? Yeah, sorry, not Ntombela. Psalm chapter 68, we're looking at verse 5 and verse 6.
A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in his holy dwelling. God sets the lonely in families. He leads out the prisoners with singing, but the rebellious live in a sun-scorched land.
Amen. Thank you, Uncles. As usual, may God add a blessing to the reading of his word. Amen. Shall we pray? Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, we thank you for the opportunity to read of your word. Read it not just to ourselves, but even in a congregation such as this, and read it freely so. And so we thank you for that privilege. We thank you, Father, for the opportunity to hear you, then speak to us of and in your word. We're praying that this hour, Father, may your words be clear and succinct. May they be straight to the point, and may they speak to our direct need. We pray, Father, for the Spirit to interpret and to fill up where shortfalls are. And I pray, Father, for the forgiveness of sin, that it not hinder your children from hearing you speak to them. This we pray, trusting and believing and knowing that you will do even more than we ask or imagine. In Christ's wonderful name, amen. Okay, so Psalm 68 is the passage as read. Now, the idea, this motive of God being a father is prevalent in Scripture. We find it all through the Bible, where God is portrayed as a father. And we love it so much. In Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, I think that's one of the one of the most favored of passages. You know, he is described as an everlasting father. Even Christ is being described as such. John chapter 14, verse 2, he says he's a father whose house has many rooms. In fact, in this other translation, it says his house has many what? Many mansions. He's a father whose house has many mansions. 1 Corinthians 8:6 says, a father who's the source and reason for all that exists. He's the source and reason for all that exists. In other words, everything finds its existence, its beginning, its foundations in him. Notice though, it does not say he is a man. So the pronouns that may be used to describe him are him and he. They might be of the male gender, but notice Never is God described as a man. He's described as a father in the scriptures that we read. He's a father. Please do not read too much into my words. Yeah, you have to put a disclaimer. Please do not read too much into my words to infer your own conceptions and philosophies. I merely refer to the male gender, to the classification that is deemed man. That's what I'm speaking about, that God is not described as merely a man. He's a father. Because often the term is used by those who want to usurp what it means. Because I'm a man, I'm entitled to receive. Because I'm a man, you must treat me in such and such a manner. Why? Why must we treat you like that? Because I'm a man. And often it's by people who do not qualify to be treated with those things. You find boys wanting to be treated like men. You find boys wanting to get things that belong to men. And so God is not a man, he's a father. And what does father mean? I just looked at it not from the dictionary perspective, but I went to Strong's and tried to search. And it's quite fascinating. Of all the definitions of father that I tried to look up, father, where it's mentioned, you don't have any variations of the word. It only has one definition of all the, in my research, what I went through, it only had one definition. Even in the Greek, it had one definition. And it came across as an originator, a founder, an architect, a designer, a transmitter. That's a father. A generator, a sustainer, an upholder. That's a father. A protector, someone responsible for something. A ruler, a chief. A steward, a provider. The father is also a teacher, an experienced one. He also comes across as the virtuous one, the wise one. These are definitions of what the father means when you go to Strong's. A father is these things. He's also a judge, an advocate. In other words, his qualities are that of justice, which means he's also one who implements discipline. These are qualities of the Father. So of God, the scriptures call him Father. I think you can see how these words, these definitions of what Father mean, can be used to describe God. Are we together? Are we in agreement? That can be used to describe what God is. Of particular interest to us this morning is the way the term is used in the scripture we read. He is a father of the fatherless. I love it in verse 5. He says, he gives to the lonely. I love it in the version that we read this morning. He gives to the lonely, puts them in families. He puts them in families. In the King James, it just says, to the solitary, he provides families. To the lonely, he puts them in families. You see, a father is not one who has managed, pardon my French, only to impregnate a woman. That's not just what a father is. To be a father is not to father a child. That is just a sign of functional biological properties. That's it. And so though he created us and we bring to him, God reveals we belong to him, rather. He created us and we belong to him. Because that's what we think fatherhood is. Because I started your existence, I'm your father. That might be true. But you see, God doesn't just end there just because he made us, so we need to honor him as our father. He reveals his fatherhood on a day-to-day basis. You see, God's fatherhood is revealed in his character to us by his deeds. So he calls us his children. He says we ought to call him Father because of what he does as well as who he is. He birthed us, that's biology. But it's because he fathers us in a present continuous tense. It's because he fathers us That's why we ought to call him Father. There is a problem when you have to assert your fatherhood by mentioning the word. Hear me well. There's a problem when you have to tell the people that you are father of. I am the father here. Then something has gone wrong. Because if you were, we would have known. We wouldn't need to be having an introduction of who you are. Your actions must speak for themselves. And so Psalm 68 verse 4 says, he is the father of the fatherless. So God is the father of us all. But he goes and places us in families like verse 6 verse says. But having done that, he does not say my job is done. He goes and searches out those who are fatherless. And he still becomes a father to them. He goes and seeks out the vulnerable and becomes what they need. He goes and provides comfort where many are overlooked. And that is what distinguishes him. He adds that personal touch. Because remember, God is a big God. And some of us, because we are big people, a story is told of a politician. A politician who went around doing good. And because of the charisma he had and the work he did with the people, he rose in the ranks. And people loved him so. But as he grew in the ranks, his character began to change because his portfolio began to grow. And so at one rally, someone wants to have a one-on-one with him. And so they ask the aide, please may you go and call Mr. So-and-so that I must just speak to him and relate my challenges to him. And his response is not what the aide, the help, was looking for or was expecting actually from this man who was known to be the man of the people. He says, ever since I took up the needs of the many, yes, you guessed it, I do not have time for the individual. And the aide then didn't miss a beat and said, well, sir, it's quite impressive to see that you have rose to even ranks Christ did not rise to. You see, when we become so engulfed in the needs of the many that we neglect the few, we have missed our calling. We have missed our mark. We have missed our duty. We have missed our calling. So this morning we ask, what distinguishes you? What kind of a father are you? They say a typical South African child is raised by a mother. And we're talking a typical South African child is raised by a mother and has a living biological father, but an absent one. So it's a typical South African child has a mother who raises them. They live with the mother most of the times. But as a father who is absent, I'm talking biologically, but is alive somewhere. This is the norm of our society. So, if that's the norm, it means it's abnormal for a child to have a father staying with them. That's our culture. That's the society we live in, where it's abnormal to say, I live with my dad. Have you ever paused to think about that? I know some of us here, especially in our circles, we might not be familiar with that because we're Christian people. We grow up with our dads and our moms, and we grow up with our children, and we take care of them. But have you ever thought about that we are the abnormality? If you are that, you are the abnormal one. Over 60% of children don't have their fathers staying at home. And I mean biological again, let me clarify. But it should be noted that non-residency does not translate to non-involvement. Let me explain that. So just because the father is not staying at home does not mean that he is not involved in the child's life. Are we together? So it happens that they might not be physically staying with the child, but they might be involved. Sadly, though, most of this involvement is financially. So they just take care of the child financially. But sadly, the saddest of it all is that, and that's over 60% we said, of the less than 40%, those that are staying with their dads at home, the dads are also absent. And by that, I mean, I like to call it present absence. So, ukhona mara ungathi awukho. You are here, but you are not here. And that then leaves even a greater dilemma. And so, as though the situation was not dire enough, of the 40% that is at home, you then get a big chunk of that. The fathers are abusive parents. Such that of surveys that have been done of people who don't have children, some have been asked, what have you missed most, or would you hoped that your parent or your dad would have been here? And it says, why would I do that? That's their response. Why would I be even wanting him in my life? Because of those that have them, most of them are suffering. So I am at a better position that is not even here. So your present absence is actually preferred to be absent absence. It would have been better if you were not here. Now let me call this to your mind as well. That, remember, these stats are not of those people in a certain place. These are South African statistics, and which means they include us in that demographic. So the things that are being mentioned here are also happening in the church. It is also counted among our numbers that we have got abusive fathers in our homes. Dad is an angel at church, but at home is a lion. It's here. Sadly, you don't see it. Sure, they say, "Chakafukita zimba matenga." What covers the homes is roofs, so you don't see what's inside. You don't see it. You only then see the facade, the picture that they portray in the outside. Wow, look at them. Aren't they good together? There's a reason that Christ left the church at home. That you get to go into deeper, beyond the pretense, beyond the mask, and speak to the real people in their real places. There's a reason that Christ did that. And so the Bible calls God a father of the fatherless. I hope that it brings a picture now of who he's talking about. He's just not talking, because usually, especially in the text that we read, he speaks about orphans and widows. And so we think those are the ones being mentioned. But when you come into a community now and into a society today, you see that he's speaking about people who've got no fathers at home. He's a father of the fatherless. He's speaking about people who've got fathers who are present but absent. He's a father to the fatherless. He's speaking to people, and this one is the most dangerous and most difficult one, who've got fathers who are abusive. He's a father to the father. But now the challenge is, how does one relate to the Father God when all the pictures of fathers that they have seen do not portray a good picture? So then the moment you say there is a God to them, and then you then say he's a father, they don't want nothing to do with him. Because the pictures that have been portrayed of fathers is not a good one. Friends, it does something to a child's psyche to have a void of such proportions, a void of an absent father. A majority of children with behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes, the statistics say. A majority of children with fatherless homes struggle in school, and a majority of them even become dropouts. They are the more prevalent to experiment with drugs, alcohol, and sex. Children who come from fatherless homes, meaning that premarital sex and even premarital pregnancies are found prevalently among children who come from homes without fathers. These children also have a higher suicidal rate. They are the majority in juvenile detention centers. They constitute the bulk of homeless children. Oh, because somebody started what they could not finish. That's it. That's the bulk of the matter. Somebody started what they could not finish. Remember how we started? Some of us just have definitions that say, I'm a man, so I'm entitled. And so I want to take things that don't belong to me. And the result is this. We don't see the ripple effect of what we are starting. We are just living in the moment. YOLO, living your best life now. In fact, you only live once, don't you? But what are the repercussions of what you're doing? We don't look at that. Oh, how I pray that we could be a generation of men who join those who are doing better. Please note, I didn't say who do better. Because thank God there are some who are already doing better. But like Matthew 9 says, the harvest is great, but the laborers are few. The difference that they're trying to do is overpowered and overshadowed by the bulk of the negative that is there. But thank God that they're shining as lights in their corners. And they're looking for brothers who will help them in that. They're looking for men who will also stand up and be counted in their corners. Who will say, I will do it differently. Even if I might be the first in my family. To break the horrible situation that they might be found themselves in. Men who will answer when called, and answer boldly, will answer loudly, here I am. The call is not to do the impossible, but to do and to continue doing better. You see, it's a present continuous tense. It's to do and to continue doing better. It's a call to be mentors. Mentors responsible for transmitting values. Remember the definitions of a father? It's a call to be that. It's a call to be leaders by precept and by example, to lead out as positive role models. I'm not even speaking of biological fathers only, you see, but to all the men. Because remember, God says he's the father of the fatherless. They wouldn't be fatherless if he was already their father. It is because they find themselves in a state of fatherlessness that he has to step in. So the call is not just for those with their own children. The call is for men. I dare say the call is for women. The call is for young and old to stand in the gap. The call is for us to be fathers of the fatherless. Notice I didn't say men. Notice I didn't say males. Notice it's fathers of the fatherless. Notice the definitions of a father are applicable to anybody.
Amen.
We are all in positions of influence, one way or another. In fact, by default, you're an influencer. Whether you like it or not, someone looks up to you. Have you ever thought about that? Whether you like it or not, whether by intent or not, someone looks up to you. So we have Owenkosi, who looks up to Mpumi. But Mpumi looks up to Giovanni. Giovanni looks up to Blake. Blake looks up to Moody. Moody to Bra Steve. Bra Steve to Bab Tiban. Bab Tiban to Bab Dladla. And so it goes on. And you're thinking, no, I'm in no position. I don't owe nobody nothing. I just come to church, I do my time, and I'm out. But in that, you are giving an example. And I love this. Listen to this one. Messages to Young People, pages 17. In this life, we are preparing for a future life. The Spirit of Prophecies writes, soon there is to be a grand review in which every soul who is seeking to be a perfect or seeking to a perfect Christian character must bear the test of God's searching questions. Have you set an example that others have been safe in following? That's the question. Have you set an example that others have been safe in following? Because when you walk, you're living an example. And so the question is, have you set an example that others have been safe in following? Have you watched for souls as those that must give account? Because God will ask. God will ask. Because people do not learn by listening. You can give all the nice lessons you want. But people learn by looking, by observation. And so we take in, this is how you do it. Because you learn by teaching and by demonstration. So they then say, oh, this is what you meant when you were saying the words you said, that we must do it this way that you're doing it. And it's sad when your words don't match your walk, when your talk does not match your walk, it becomes so confusing. And so it is very difficult, in fact, an impossibility, to mend the ways, to break the cycle. Because where the fathers may have tripped, the sons will stumble. And where the sons have stumbled and the daughters have stumbled, the grandchildren will fall. You might have thought it's just a small thing in your generation, in your era. But if you do not fix it there, it only worsens as it goes. And so, friends, have we set an example that others have been safe in following? Sadly, when some fall, they never rise again. How will we answer when God asks us the question of Jeremiah 13:30? In Jeremiah 13, verse 30, this is what the prophet speaks of God's question. Jeremiah chapter 13, verse 20, we'll look at part B. Where is the flock that was given to you? Where is the flock? We read earlier on, during the pastoral prayer, John chapter 17, of all you gave me, I have kept all. That's the example. Of all you gave me, I have kept all except one, the son of perdition. Now, what's going to be your response when put in that great tribunal? How would we answer? Who will break the cycle? Who will stand and say, I will be the first? If nobody else is doing it, even if I have to stand alone, I will do it. Who will answer the call? When asked, where are you? And they say boldly, here I am. Don't be fooled, friends. Good morals are not inherent. You do not learn just by being how to live right. Good morals are not inherent. We cannot impart what we do not possess. The crisis may manifest physically, as we read the stats, as we see in community. The crisis may manifest physically. But I kid you not, friends, the problem is a spiritual problem, and it is spelled S-I-N. So let us run to the Lamb who alone can take away the sin of the world. And he invites us. Brother Ntombela was speaking about the burdens that we bear. Allow me to read one of my favorite translations on this text. Matthew chapter 11. Because Christ says, he invites us, come, learn of me. That's the invitation. So the lessons are not inherent in us, but thank God Christ is willing to teach us. He says, come and learn of me. But I love how Eugene puts it in verse 28. in verse 28, it goes down to verse 30. He asks this question. So Christ says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden. But Eugene asks it as a question. He says, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you will recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Remember we said what? People might learn by listening, but the bulk of it is given by demonstration. So watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Amen. Amen. So let us learn of Christ. He invites us to learn of him, to search the scriptures, for they testify of him. To ask the Father, yes, ask him who is the Father of the fatherless, how we can be better in our society, in our time, how we can impart better values to those who are watching us, how we can be better than the present absence, even in the community, even in the family, even in the church. How we can just be better than marking a register. And so the scriptures call him Father. Amen.
Would like to thank Brother Vireri for standing in the place of God and allowing God to use him in this hour. As we close, we are going to stand up and make use of song number 133.
Let's all stand. Ovuma ngihambe nkosito. Ovuma ngihambe asiculeni. Njengo eno wayehamba ngithathe ngesandla sakho ukhulume mnandi nami noma ngingaboni indlela kodwa ngizohamba nawe anginakho ukuhamba lunesipho uhlupho yangithiya izithasi yangilinga kuso lesi zihlupheko Nkosivuma hambe nawe nxa uthathi sandla sami ngizohamba ngokwethaba ngesibindi endleleni ngizothwala isiphambano namahasango onkosima hambe nawe. Let's close our eyes. Gracious Lord and Father, we want to thank you so much for all that you do for us. We're here and we have accepted your word and we have heard you speaking to us. Let us not only hear what you have said to us, but let us put it into practice, more especially as men. Help us, Lord Jesus,